A credit score in Australia is definitely one of the more controversial topics that is discussed between people. It is usually shut down pretty quickly as being not important at all, and although it probably isn't as important as what a credit score in America is, it absolutely is important and definitely something worth understanding because it may impact your ability to borrow money down the line. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reese. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about credit scores in Australia. Straight off the bat, the credit score system in Australia is still important when considering or planning to borrow money. This includes anything like borrowing money from a bank for a home loan, taking out a personal loan, applying for a credit card, or actually taking out money for a car loan. A lender will take a look at your credit score as a determining factor as to whether or not you are someone who is likely to make repayments to or for money that you intend to borrow. Your actual credit score is determined by something which is called a credit report, which is compiled from a few different sources of information to give you that overall number. The first source of information which goes into a credit report is based on your current and past borrowing activities. Examples would include what types of loans you have applied for, what types of loans you have actually taken out, and if you have made your repayments on time. The second source of information which plays a role in building your credit report is your utility and phone bills. Now, this information is provided by your telephone companies and your utilities to a source where lenders can go and compile that information to see if you have missed or been late on any of your payments. And finally, the last source of information comes from banks, and that is to determine whether or not you have had any bankruptcies. This information is then fed into an equation which spits out a number, and this number ranges from 0 to 1,000 or 0 to 1,200 depending on the agency that you get your credit report or credit score through. And the only thing that you need to understand about this number is that the higher it is, the better off your credit score is. So if you are being assessed between 0 and 1,000, having a score of 1,000 means you've got perfect credit. Good job. Same goes for if you are being assessed between the 0 and 1,200 number. If your credit score is 1,200, good job. You've got perfect credit. The higher the number is, the better your credit score is. One thing to note is that the credit scoring system doesn't take specific things into account, such as your savings, your income or wage, and your assets. None of them are assessed as part of you obtaining a credit score. Some very common things which will heavily impact your credit score, and in a negative way, would be applying for lots of credit cards, being rejected when you apply for credit cards, having credit cards with really high limits, or having multiple credit cards with really high limits, having or not making payments on time and missing payments on your credit cards. All of these things will have a negative impact on your credit score and could potentially affect you from being able to borrow money down the line. On the other end of this, ways to improve your credit score would be to reduce debt, reduce credit card limits, make sure you make your payments on time, and that you're not overspending and getting caught by credit card interest. So realistically, doing the right thing with your money will ensure that you have a good credit score. Ways to improve your credit score would be to reduce your credit card limits, make sure that you pay any overdue accounts or any overdue bills, and make sure that you aren't just letting credit card debt just continue to grow. I use credit cards in all of these examples because they're the easiest ones to grasp, but this goes for anything like personal loans, car loans, or things like Afterpay. Just be conscious of it because ultimately it may affect your ability to borrow money down the line. And the best ways to retain your credit score is to make sure that your loans are paid on time, whether it be a home loan or a car loan. Don't apply for unnecessary credit cards. So don't try and have 10 credit cards. You don't need it in the first place, but that is one thing that definitely would get flagged. Make sure that you don't have unnecessarily high limits on credit cards. So if you had a $100,000 credit card, which would just be absurd, but if you did and you were only spending $5,000 on it a year, you look at your credit score, someone might be like, don't know about that. These are just simple ways to retain your credit score. So just keep doing what you're doing if you have good credit. Keep doing what you're doing if you are pretty good with your money, because obviously you're not going to fall into the pit of having a heavily impacted credit score. This will ultimately ensure that when the time comes for you to start applying for loans, such as a home loan, that you will have a healthy credit score and probably won't have too much trouble obtaining that loan. In Australia, you are entitled to actually apply for your credit report, which will ultimately result in giving you your credit score for free once per year. The best thing about this is it allows you to check what your credit score is, but another good thing about doing this would be allowing you to check that no one else has tried to apply for finance or for a loan under your name, because your credit score makes sure or provides all information about you applying for loans and credit cards and things like that. So it would give you insight as to whether or not someone has tried to basically commit fraud against your name. I hope you have a little bit more insight as to why a credit score can be important here in Australia. It still is important to understand. It still is important to be wary of. It doesn't mean that you can just go rack up lots of credit card debt and then just simply get a loan. It's not that simple. Yes, I agree, it's not as complex as the American system's credit score, but it's still important in Australia. It's still something lenders look at, and it's still something to be wary of. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. And as always, I will see you in the next one.